How's it going, everybody? It's week 12 of the NFL season. It's coming up right now. We got Thanksgiving weekend, 3 fantastic games of football on Thanksgiving. Best time of the year when it comes to football. You got food, family, and football. Doesn't get any better than this. Without further ado, let's kick it off with our Thanksgiving games. So our first Thanksgiving game, it's going to be Thanksgiving morning. We got the Detroit Lions at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are 7-3, the Lions are 4-6. So the Lions have a 3-game winning streak coming right now. They had a very impressive win against the Giants last week. And we had some pretty good performances. Jared Goff was only 17 of 26 for 165 yards for an 83 passer rating, so it wasn't really on his part. The real star of the show here was Jamal Williams, who leads the league in touchdowns right now. 17 carries, 64 yards, 3 touchdowns. Very, very impressive showing there. As for the Buffalo Bills, they defeated the Browns 31-23 in an equally as dominant performance. Josh Allen was 18 of 27 for 197 yards, 1 touchdown for a 100.4 passer rating, so he had a very good showing. This game is going to be very interesting because the Lions, like I said, are coming off a 3-game winning streak. They're really starting to build some momentum. They're not going to make a run for the playoffs or anything, but I do think that they could surprise a team like the Bills, especially at home. Although that being said, the Bills did play basically a home game in Detroit last week against the Browns. But the Bills are proven to be a bit mortal after their last 2 losses. So I suppose anything could happen. They're still the premier team in the league right now. Josh Allen may not be the MVP frontrunner that we thought he was going to be, but he's still, he's still managing right now. He's still playing at a Pro Bowl caliber level. I think that despite the Lions being at home, despite them, being used to playing on Thanksgiving and all that fun stuff, I don't really think that they're going to be able to upset the Bills here. I think the Bills are going to win, advance to 8-3. They're not number 1 in the division anymore. They have the Dolphins to chase right now, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare. But I'm going to be going with the Bills on this one. So next up, we got an NFC East showdown. Thanksgiving afternoon, we got the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Both of these teams are 7-3. So whatever happens in this game, it's going to benefit the Commanders because one of them has to lose. The Cowboys obviously looking like the stronger team because they throttled the Minnesota Vikings 40-3. Incredible showing by them. As for the Giants, they lost out to the Lions, again, 18-31. That last touchdown was in the 4th quarter, so it made it look a little bit more of an impressive showing. Daniel Jones had a mixed performance. He was 27-44 for 341 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions for a 71.4 passer rating. But in addition to that, he had seven rushes for 50 yards and a touchdown. So Daniel Jones is still showing his legs. I think that's added an interesting dimension to his game. But I still don't think that Daniel Jones is the long-term answer. He only has 9 passing touchdowns for the season, which is, that's not good at all. Right now, he has 9 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So he's still very much a game manager quarterback, but he finds a way to get it done, hence by the fact that they're 7-3, because the Giants have a very, very good defense. Again, as for the Cowboys, they ran roughshod on the Vikings. So Dak Prescott was 22 of 25, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns for a 139.3 passer rating. And then Ezekiel Elliott had 15 carries for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns, so 2 goal line touchdowns. And then Tony Pollard, in addition to 80 yards rushing, he had 6 receptions for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Cowboys were scoring all over. And it's one of these games where I don't know if this was just the Cowboys going off or if the Vikings just completely laid an egg. We're going to see what's going to happen in this Thanksgiving evening game because the Vikings are going to be playing. But for this game right here, it looks like both of these teams are trending in opposite directions. They may both be 7-3, but the Giants are coming off the bad loss against a bad team in the Detroit Lions, and the Cowboys are having had an incredible win against the Minnesota Vikings. So with momentum going the Cowboys' way, as well as them playing at home, I'm going to be going with the Dallas Cowboys on this one. So next up, we have our Thanksgiving evening game. We have the New England Patriots at the Minnesota Vikings. What did I say was going to happen in the Patriots-Jets game? Bill Belichick's defense was going to take advantage of Zach Wilson being inexperienced. The defense was going to control the game, and the Patriots were going to win. Exactly what I said was going to happen happened in that game. I'm very proud of myself for that prediction because I called that to a T. That's why you watch these videos. I know what I'm talking about. And it's games like that that prove it. But something that I didn't think was going to happen was the Vikings only putting up 3 points against the Dallas Cowboys. That was quite a surprise. Kirk Cousins was 13 of 23 for 105 yards, 64.6 passer rating. So it seems as though as soon as we start developing confidence for Kirk Cousins, he has a game that humbles him. Meanwhile, Mac Jones was 23 of 27, 246 yards and 104.6 passer rating. So Mac Jones had a pretty good game from like completion to yards standpoint. He just didn't throw any touchdowns. The Patriots were in control of that game with the Jets. You know, the Patriots have the best defense in the league right now. And I think that it shows when they can only hold the Jets to 3 points. And that punt return obviously was much needed. You know, it put them over the top to eventually win. But, you know, I think the Patriots are winning that game anyway. Whether they drive the ball down the field on that last drive, make it 6-3. Still kind of a lame game, but they still won, which is what matters. So I'm inclined to go for the Vikings on this one, but a factor that usually doesn't come into play with a lot of people, but will come into play here, is primetime Kirk Cousins. I know I've said this before. I think Kirk Cousins goes to bed really early. I think that the reason why he doesn't play well during prime time is he gets the sleepy eyes. He's usually in bed by 9 p.m. and he plays past his bedtime in prime time, and I think that's why he hasn't been playing very well. So with the mix of primetime Kirk Cousins, the Vikings coming off of an atrocious loss, and the Patriots really starting to gain confidence in their defense and their offense just doing enough to win games, I'm going to be going with the road team here, and I think the Patriots are going to upset the Vikings. All right, guys, so we're going to get into it a little bit early again today. We have the Atlanta Falcons at the Washington Commanders. So the Commanders have won 5 of their last 6 games. They were 1-4 at one point. Now they're 6-5. Still not the 7th seed because, as you know, the San Francisco 49ers, they won the Monday night game, so they're 6-4. So we're still chasing them, but if we keep playing the way that we're playing, it's going to be really, really difficult for us to miss the playoffs. They had a very convincing win against the Texans. Their defense really showed up. Offense, not so much. They could have done a lot better. They scored 2 field goals in the red zone when they really should have scored 1 more. They still won 23-10. It was still a very convincing win, but the Texans aren't a very good team. We could have done a lot better. Taylor Heineke was 15 of 27 for 191 yards, a 77.9 passer rating. That's what I'm saying. Like we should have played a lot better from an offensive standpoint against the Texans. I think that our defense played very well. We had the pick 6 and the other interception. So the defense did its job. They held them to like however many yards in the first half. The Texans offense wasn't able to get anything done, and that is a good power move by the Commanders defense. As for the Falcons beat the Bears 27-24. Marcus Mariota was 13 of 20 for 131 yards and a touchdown, 100.3 passer rating, 100.2 passer rating, excuse me, got to get those numbers right. So that was very impressive. Cordell Patterson had a kick return touchdown. That means that he has the most kick return touchdowns by any player in NFL history, so big mad props to him. That's very, very impressive of him. The Falcons are very, very strange because they seem to be contenders. They seem to be contenders every now and then. They win games that are very impressive, and then they just lay an egg. They're 1-4 in road games. If you remember last season, we beat the Falcons. I think that this is going to be a victory for us. I do think the Commanders are going to come through with a victory. I don't think the Falcons really have the firepower to beat out our defense. I think Chase Young is expected to play in this game. He was finally activated onto the 53-man roster. I know I've been saying that week after week that Chase Young is going to play, but it seems like he's finally going to be able to in this game. And I just can't imagine our front four giving up a lot. And I think that they have a real opportunity to pressure Marcus Mariota into making some really bad mistakes. And if we can really force them to make mistakes, cause turnovers, our offense will be able to capitalize on those mistakes, score points, and stay ahead. This is a very winnable game. I dare say a must-win game for the Commanders with how competitive the wild card space is with the NFC, with all the NFC East teams populating it. We don't have the benefit that the Falcons do of being in a weak division where we can play for the division with a 5-6 record. You know, we're 6-5 and we're still the number 8 seed. Winning this game would bring us up to 7-5. We'd be in a lot better position than we play the Giants the following week. If the Cowboys knock off the Giants and we knock off the Giants, then we'll be in really, really good shape. I think at that point, it would be 7-5 for both, but I would imagine, would have a better divisional record, so we would have the 7th seed. Could come down to the wire like that. So, but they got to start by winning this game first. And I think they will at home. I'm going to be going with the Washington Commanders. So next up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Cleveland Browns. So this, I stand corrected what I said last week. This is the final game that Jacoby Brissett is going to be starting before Mr. Deshaun Watson comes back, when they go ahead and play Houston. I wonder who planned that. I think that Deshaun Watson is going to be a bust so far, like just for this season in Cleveland. Like they really made this move to acquire Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland Browns did, for the next season. Because like for all they knew, he could have been out for the entire season, right, through that suspension. They're lucky that he's coming back when he is. The whole thought was if the Browns could hover around 500, Deshaun Watson could be that extra kick to kind of get them over the hump and make a playoff run. So far, that hasn't happened because they're 3-7. The Buccaneers are coming off of a bye. They're 5-5. And this is a layup game for them. They really should win coming off of the bye to try and stay in front with the Falcons nipping at their heels. If the Falcons win and the Buccaneers lose, then you're looking at the Falcons in first place again. Now, I don't think either one of those situations is going to happen. I think the Commanders are going to win, and spoiler, I think the Buccaneers are going to beat the Browns. The Buccaneers are coming off of a strong win in Germany against Seattle, 21-16. So Seattle's no slouch, so they did very well to defeat a strong team like that, kind of reestablishing themselves in the NFC space. They're lucky they're in such a weak division because right now there's no other real shark in that division. The Saints, you know, they're a couple games back. It's certainly not going to be the Panthers. And again, like I said, the Falcons could make a run, but I don't really see that happening. As for the Browns, they lost out to the Bills, like I said, 23-21. Jacoby Brissett did have a good game, though. He was 28-41, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns, 116.3 passer rating. So he had a pretty good game. Amari Cooper had a good game as well. He had 8 receptions for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns for a 14.1 average per reception. So Amari Cooper had a good game as well. Jacoby Brissett is a bridge quarterback, to put things simply. He's like in the same category as like Mitch Trubisky, PJ Walker, Marcus Mariota, that kind of class where he can start for a couple games, but he's not the kind of guy you want to give the keys to your offense. So that is kind of where Jacoby Brissett is now. This is his last chance at the starting job. And I don't really think he's going to get it back from Deshaun Watson unless he has a phenomenal game against the Buccaneers and then Deshaun Watson comes out flat. But I do think they paid Deshaun Watson all that money, so they're going to try and get their money's worth with him. And even if he's bad, they're probably going to still start him in 2023. What's going to happen in this game? I think Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win. They have a lot more to play for. Right now, the Browns, it would benefit them if they tanked, because then they could get some high draft picks and really start building a team around all-around great guy Deshaun Watson as their quarterback. Still can't believe that's happening, but I'm not a fan of Cleveland. I can just kind of look over in disgust and be like, what the hell were they thinking? I'm one to talk, though, as a Commanders fan. I'm going to be going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So next up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Tennessee Titans. So both of these teams are coming off of wins. The Bengals defeated the Steelers 37-30, and the Titans beat the Packers 27-17. Both of these teams are in the playoffs right now. The Titans are comfortably in the lead of the AFC South. I think the closest team that can really catch them right now is the Colts, and even then they're, 4-7-1, so they're not doing too hot. But that being said, the Titans are still a very strong team. They're still very well managed. Ryan Tannehill had a good game. He was 22 of 27, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception, 127.3 passer rating. So again, very, very impressive. Derrick Henry was 28 carries, 87 yards, and a touchdown. So pretty modest numbers for King Henry there. But they, held the Packers to 17 points. They had a very, very solid win. As for the Bengals, Joe Burrow really went off in this one. He was 24 of 39, 355 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 104.1 passer rating. T. Higgins had 9 receptions for 148 yards, so he had a big game. Someone else who had a big game, Samaje Perine, who had 4 receptions for 52 yards and 3 touchdowns. Anyone who knows anything about Samaje Perine will know that we drafted him in like the 6th round a couple years ago. Glad to see he's still in the league, and glad to see that he's still successful, because Lord knows he wasn't successful with us. So this is a game between 2 high-level teams. This is a kind of matchup that you wouldn't be surprised to see in the playoffs. This is more of a must-win game for the Bengals, because they're the 7th seed right now. As you'll see when I go over my playoff predictions, they just narrowly edged out the Jets. The Jets are the team on the bubble right now, and the Bengals managed to backdoor themselves into the playoffs. And I think that they've been very, very impressive this season. It's going to be interesting. The Titans are 3-1 at home, so they do very well at home. And, Derrick Henry is still a beast. It's so easy especially with a team with a lackluster defense, where Derrick Henry they can just give the ball to him again and again and again. He can get first downs. He can take over time of possession. He can just dominate, right? So there's a chance that happens. However, the Bengals are the number 1 offense in the league right now. They scored 37 points against a good Steelers unit. However, that being said, they gave up 30 points to a subpar offense as well. The Titans are a very well-rounded team, so it wouldn't surprise me if the Titans really came out strong. It's a big toss-up. I am going to be going with the Titans, though. Despite the fact that the Bengals have more to play for, if they're giving up 30 points against the subpar offense, I really do think that the Titans will have the opportunity to really score a lot of points, control time of possession with Derrick Henry, and the Bengals may be able to, fire back with some points. I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think that they're going to be able to do enough to defeat the Titans. I think the Titans are a premier team in this league right now. The only thing keeping them from being taken seriously is more playoff success. But I feel like the Titans are a team that are Super Bowl contenders. All they need to do is get hot in the playoffs, and they can easily make the Super Bowl. So I'm going to be going with the Tennessee Titans on this one. All right, guys, so next up, we got the Houston Texans at Miami Dolphins. So Dolphins are 7-3. They're at the top of their division. Houston Texans at 1-8-1 are the bottom of their division, or the bottom of the league, rather. And they did not have a very inspiring performance against the Washington Commanders. Davis Mills was 19 of 33 for 169 yards, 2 interceptions for a 46.2 passer rating. They had 3 points for the majority of the game, and then they scored a touchdown in garbage time. They didn't look good, to put it simply. The Houston Texans have a lot of building blocks. They have, Dameon Pierce. They have a lot of good young talent, but from a roster standpoint, they're just in a different league than a lot of these other teams in the NFL. I think that if you took the Houston Texans roster and put them in the XFL or USFL, they would be a bit more competitive. However, I do think that they would do well. Not to say that they would be the bottom of those leagues. I do think they would still be at the top of those leagues, but it just kind of goes to show where they stand right now in the NFL hierarchy. As for the Dolphins, they are a top team. Tua Tagovailoa was 25 of 32, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, 135 passer rating. Tua currently leads the league in passer rating and all efficiency metrics. Patrick Mahomes leads the league in volume metrics. It's very interesting looking at Tua because he could be in the running for MVP with the way his stats are going. He has not lost a game that he hasn't finished, and I think that's extremely impressive. If he was a system QB, then the Dolphins would have won games with Teddy Bridgewater, but they didn't. I think Tua is a great quarterback. I just don't think he's flashy. I think he knows how to find the open man. I think he knows how to make the right reads. Does he benefit from having the greatest wide receiver duo in the league right now? Absolutely. Does he benefit from having an all-pro future Hall of Fame wide receiver in Tyreek Hill? Absolutely. Of course he benefits from that. But guess what? So did Patrick Mahomes. If Tua can do it without Tyreek Hill, then maybe that's something that remains to be seen. We've already seen that Mahomes can do just fine without Tyreek Hill. But for right now, he's using the weapons that he has, and he's using them extremely effectively. And as a quarterback, that's all you can ask for. I don't understand why he's getting all this hate. He's doing his job. When you have 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 135 passer rating, and you put up 39 points against the Browns, they had a bye week last week, you're doing something right? So I think this is one of those layup games for the Dolphins. This is a game that everyone's expecting them to win. If they lose, it's a big upset. It's not going to kill their season or anything because they'll still be in the run for the playoffs. But it'd be a big confidence booster for Houston if they could win, and it would just be par for the course if the Dolphins win. So I am going to be going with the Dolphins on this one to defeat the Houston Texans. Okay, so this next game, we got the Chicago Bears at the New York Jets. The Bears lost a valiant effort against the Atlanta Falcons, 24-27. Once again, this was all Justin Fields. He was 14 of 21, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for an 84 passer rating. In addition to that, he had 18 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. It seems like right now what the Bears are doing is they are just giving the ball to Justin Fields and letting him do whatever he wants, and kind of letting him be the offense. When you have a guy like Lamar Jackson, you can make it work, but I mean, they're still 3-8. You know what I mean? They still only have 3 wins, but right now, Justin Fields is their offense. Right now, he has 834 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. That is coming up to be an all-time rushing season for a quarterback. I know we've been spoiled by what Lamar Jackson can do, but if Justin Fields put up these numbers 10 years ago, the only rival that he would really have was RG3 for his rookie year. Running quarterbacks never really did this, and Cam Newton. But Justin Fields is inserting himself right into that discussion with being an elite running quarterback. And his passing has gotten better too. So I think there's a lot of optimism for the Bears because they are seeing a lot of progress with their quarterback. I remember early on in the season, I was like, this guy just doesn't have it. They got to move on. He's not what's it. But something clicked with him mid-season. Something clicked with him. So he is... he's kind of making it work, he's starting to really get his legs out from under him, and it's starting to work out. I tell you what's not working out. Zach Wilson as quarterback. He had one of the worst games that I've seen from a quarterback. He was 9 of 22 for 77 yards and a 50.8 passer rating. They only scored 3 points in their loss against the Patriots, and I said what I said last week. Zach Wilson, an inexperienced sophomore quarterback, Bill Belichick's defense was really going to just pick him apart, and he only had 9 completions. He threw the ball 22 times. Zach Wilson is slowly approaching bust territory right now, and it's a shame because the Jets have one of the best defenses in the league. They're 6-4 because they have one of the best defenses in the league. And the tough thing is, they have Joe Flacco right now. And Joe Flacco's no stud, but he's a veteran who's not going to make dumb mistakes, and he's certainly not going to go 9 for 22. The Jets are 6-4. They're at home against the bad Bears team. They are making a playoff run. The Jets currently have the longest playoff drought of any team. The last time they made the playoffs was 2010, back when Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez were on the team, back when Darrelle Revis was on the team. This was that campaign where they went to back-to-back conference championships. So the Jets have a chance to make the playoffs here. They just got kicked out and are on the outside looking in now as the number 8 seed. So they cannot let the season slip out from under them because Zach Wilson isn't playing well. So if I were them, I would start Joe Flacco and I would go for a playoff campaign and actually try and win these games because it looks like they're not really getting anywhere with Zach Wilson, you know? So in this game, I think whether Zach Wilson plays or not, I think if Zach Wilson plays, there's a better chance that the Bears win. But if they go with Joe Flacco is going to be a lot more conservative. He's a veteran. He's going to make a lot less mistakes than Zach Wilson. And with the kind of team the Jets are, that's all you really need from a quarterback right now. You need a good game manager that's not going to turn the ball over, that's going to score when they need to, and then the Jets defense will take over the rest. I do think that Justin Fields is enough of a wild card that they may be able to shake up the Jets defense just a little bit. But I think that if the Jets were smart, they would bench Joe Flacco. If they lose this game because of Zach Wilson, then they absolutely need to bench Zach Wilson. Because keep in mind, they were 6-3 at one point. They were in the playoff race comfortably. And these back-to-back losses will have just thrown them out of the run. So they got to do what's right. And if what's right is benching Zach Wilson, they may be forced to do it. That being said, I'm still going to be going with the home team. I still think the New York Jets are going to win. If Zach Wilson plays badly, and they lose, they really need to consider benching him because he may just play them out of the playoffs. So I'm going to be going with the Jets. So this next game is between two tanks, basically. We have the Denver Broncos at the Carolina Panthers. So last week's game, we were talking about two massive underachieving teams in the Broncos and Raiders. Who ended up winning the game? The Raiders did. Not after a giant field goal party, though. Russell Wilson was 24 of 31, 247 yards, 99.8 passer rating. That's pretty good, but they scored 16 points. None of those touchdowns were because of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has only thrown 7 touchdowns this season so far. So right now, his stat line for this season is he's got 2,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 83.3 passer rating. If he keeps going at that rate, he'll have 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's Russell Wilson numbers. That is insane. I have never seen a quarterback go from a first ballot Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler like Russell Wilson to 12 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. That is such a huge step back. Something that I've never seen before. So, that leaves a lot to be desired. Obviously, that's not what the Broncos wanted when they got Russell Wilson. They were hoping that he would throw 3 times as many touchdowns as that. But losing to the Raiders is not good. The Broncos still have an elite defense, which is why I think that they will beat the Panthers. You know what, though? Because for what it's worth, the Panthers didn't play too bad. Their defense didn't play too bad. They held the Ravens to only 3 points for a large majority of that game. Baker Mayfield was 21 of 33, 196 yards, 2 interceptions, a 54.6 passer rating. So they still only scored 3 points, so Baker Mayfield didn't really help them there. But the Panthers have a lot of optimism right now. They may be 3-8, but they have played a lot of teams pretty tough. And a lot of it has to do with their defense, right? They held the Ravens to 3 points for what I want to say was 3 quarters. I was watching the Commanders game, but the place I was watching it at, it was in Baltimore, so there were Ravens games all over the place. So we found a little corner in the bar where they were playing the Commanders game, and me and the Commanders fans were over there. So it was a little patch of red and a sea of purple. But that's how my Sundays go in the city that I live in. But anyway, Denver is already underperformed. And I was going to say, if they lose to the Panthers, then it's going to be like Nathaniel Hackett may get fired. I don't think he's going to get fired mid-season, but I do think that if he loses to teams like the Raiders, like the Panthers, he's only going to last 1 season. He should not have a job. You can say whatever you want about Russell Wilson not doing well, but Russell Wilson isn't doing well. He's making bad reads. He's not playing like he did. Like I said, we're wondering how much of Seattle's system benefited Russell Wilson. And now when Russell Wilson wants to be like the guy who runs the offense, he can't do it. There's nothing wrong with being a quarterback that works inside of a system. There are plenty of quarterbacks that have done really, really well just working inside of the system that they're in. Ryan Tannehill is a good example of that. But, you know, Nathaniel Hackett is doing them no favors. You have to have some accountability for the coach when you still can't put over 20 points in a game. I think I saw a statistic once that said like the Broncos would be like 8-1 if they scored over 17 points in every game. That means their defense was doing really well, but it also means their offense just simply isn't scoring points. 16 points for Denver is one of their higher totals of the season, and that's embarrassing, you know? So I think the Panthers have a solid chance of winning this game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game because both teams' defenses are their strong suits, but I think the Broncos' offense is just so anemic that I think the Panthers are going to be able to outscore them. But this is going to be like 13-6 or 13-10 final score. So that's what I'm expecting to happen. But I am going to be going with the Panthers on this one. So next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. One thing that I've been hearing a lot about the Baltimore Ravens this season is that they are quietly becoming one of the best teams in the NFL. And that I agree with. They're 7-3. They're 4-1 on the road, which I think is very impressive. A lot of their losses were, they lost control of the lead. The team came back and they won. Now, you can say that about the Ravens not being able to finish games, but it also shows that if they play all 4 quarters, they could have the best record in the NFL right now. They unfortunately do not, though. And their game against the Panthers did not instill a lot of confidence because they were at 3 points for a majority of the game. Lamar Jackson was 24-33, 206 yards, an interception for a 76.5 passer rating. So he didn't have the best game. Demarcus Robinson, though, he had 9 receptions for 128 yards, which is a very good showing by him. The Ravens are just a well-run team, unlike the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were 3-7. They lost out to the Chiefs 17-27. I don't know how much you can rag on the Jaguars for losing because they lost to the best team in the NFL right now, but, they still lost. Trevor Lawrence was 29-40 for 259 yards, 2 touchdowns for 106.1 passer rating. So Trevor Lawrence is still, he's having an okay season. He's definitely doing better than his rookie campaign. Christian Kirk as well, 9 receptions, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. So that was extremely impressive. He has proven that he's been worth the money that they picked him for. Right now, Trevor Lawrence is 13 of 16 for his touchdown-to-interception ratio. He's on track to have 22 touchdowns to 10 interceptions for an 89.7 passer rating, which, isn't bad for a sophomore quarterback on a bad team. So I think Trevor Lawrence is slowly but surely turning the corner, but much like Peyton Manning early on in his career, his team is giving him nothing to work with. I think Doug Peterson's a better coach, but the Jaguars are still very much in a rebuilding season. So they still have a lot of work to do. But I think that, I was going to say I think they'll figure it out. I don't know if that's true, but I do think Trevor Lawrence will be a solid cornerstone of their team for years to come. For this game, even though it's on the road, this is the game the Ravens are expected to win. If they lose this game, I think it'd be considered a massive upset. I am going to be going with the Ravens on this one. All right, guys, so on to the 4 o'clock games. We have the LA Chargers at the Arizona Cardinals. 2 big underperforming teams. So the Chargers have also lost their playoff berth. They're also on the outside looking in along with the Jets. They're 5-5. Justin Herbert was 23 of 30. 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception for 113.2 passer rating. So he had a pretty good game. Both of those touchdowns went to Joshua Palmer, who had 8 receptions for 106 yards. Again, 2 touchdowns. So impressive showing there. They lost out to the Chiefs, 27-30. So it was not the best game for them. But again, they're facing the Chiefs, and they scored 27 points. So the Chargers just seem to have a knack for having fantastic talent, but just not being able to fully utilize it. I mean, Justin Herbert is still hovering around 500 for his all-time QB record. You know, Taylor Heineke has a better QB record than that. Daniel Jones, I don't think Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo certainly does. A lot of mid quarterbacks have better win-loss ratios than Justin Herbert. Now, is that Justin Herbert's fault? No. Football's a team game. So I think it's just a matter on the Chargers not being well coached, their defense maybe not being disciplined enough, maybe their offense not coming in clutch when they need them to. A lot goes into a team underperforming. It's not always up to the quarterback. Speaking of underperforming, the Arizona Cardinals lost yet again. They lost to the 49ers on Monday night. Pretty easy win for the 49ers. The Cardinals just don't have the talent around them. I know Kyler Murray's not playing, but Colt McCoy is a perfectly serviceable backup that can win you games. That's just not what happened this time. Cardinals are a team in disarray. They've really fallen since they were 7-0 last season. I don't think they're going to make a run at the playoff. Well, of course they're not going to make a run for the playoffs. They're 4-7. And I think this is going to be another example of them losing yet again another game. This is a game the Chargers need to win to keep their playoff hopes alive, and I don't think the Cardinals are an explosive enough team to defeat them. So I'm going to be going with the Chargers on this one. So next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks lost in Germany to the Buccaneers last week. They're coming off of a bye. They're 6-4. They're fighting off the 49ers in their division. They're both 6-4 right now. Seattle holds the seventh seed in the NFC, though, so they're barely holding on right now. The Raiders, on the other hand, they got a good win last week. Again, their offense played very, very well. Derek Carr was 23 of 37, 377 yards, 2 touchdowns, 106.5 passer rating. Josh Jacobs had 24 carries for 109 yards. And last but not least, Davante Adams had 7 receptions for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you can say what you want about Davante Adams trading down. He's still playing well in Las Vegas. He is still a large portion of their offense. It seems as though Josh McDaniels knows how to coach an offense. He just doesn't know how to coach a whole team or maybe a whole defense. So maybe he's a great offensive coordinator, and the Raiders' offense, like you can see here, they're explosive. They make plays, you know. But I don't think against a really good defense in the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are a good enough team that they can make a playoff run now, but they need to bounce back after this loss. They're coming back with a home game. They're 3-1 at home right now. The Raiders are 1-5 on the road. It's not too much of a commute for Las Vegas all the way to Seattle, but I think that Seattle is still a better team than the Raiders. I don't think their defense is going to be able to neutralize Geno Smith's efficiency, and I don't think the Raiders' offense is going to be able to outscore the Seattle defense. So I'm going to be going with the home team and the Seattle Seahawks as they improve to 7-4. So next up, we have the LA Rams at the Kansas City Chiefs. What looked like potentially a Super Bowl matchup a year ago has turned into the same old Chiefs defeating a completely weathered Rams team. The Rams, I think, right now are showing us what happens when you go all in for a Super Bowl run. You win that Super Bowl, but then you become one of the worst reigning champions in NFL history. Because I think that's what it's looking like right now. We've had some bad reigning champions in the Super Bowl era. I don't think anything is as worse as what the Rams have been right now. The Rams have been really, really bad. They're 3-7. Looking to be 3-8 now because I don't see the Chiefs losing to them. For what it's worth, Matthew Stafford probably had the best game of the season. He was 11 of 18 for 159 yards, 2 touchdowns, 126.8 passer rating. He did leave the game early though with a concussion. They lost to the Saints 20-27. So yeah, awful. As for the Chiefs, they're their same usual dominant selves. Mahomes was 20 of 34, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, 120.8 passer rating. All 3 of those touchdowns went to his best buddy, Travis Kelce, who had 6 receptions, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, my goodness, he is establishing himself as not only the best tight end in the league, but one of the best of all time. His durability and longevity and his constant production is something to be amazed at. It's something that can only be rivaled by the likes of Tony Gonzalez or Antonio Gates or, Rob Gronkowski from a stat standpoint, not from a longevity standpoint, though. It's been very, very impressive. I'm going to try and keep this short. It's at Arrowhead. The Chiefs are at the top of their game. The Rams are a shadow of their former selves. I'm going to be going with the Chiefs on this one. I think that they're going to easily walk away with this one. And I don't think it's going to be very close because, again, like the Rams, this is what happens when you go all in for the Super Bowl, I guess. And it might deter some teams from doing it. I know winning a Super Bowl ring is the most important thing, but you run the risk of tanking your team. And it looks like that's what's happened with the Rams because they don't have any first-round draft picks. They don't have any draft picks, I don't know how they rebuild their team from this. And there's rumors that Sean McVay might leave and get an analyst job, basically leaving the Rams in the dust. I don't know what's going to happen to the Rams from here on out, but if they become a bottom dweller for the next couple years, what's this all-in push going to look like? It's going to look like they did everything they could to win the Super Bowl, and then once they did, they just sold their soul and they became a bottom dweller. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for the Rams. But just for this game, I'm going to be giving it to the Chiefs. I don't think the Rams are going to put up much of a fight. So next up, we got the New Orleans Saints at the San Francisco 49ers. The Saints are a very mid team. They've had some pretty impressive wins. Like this is an example of it when they shut out the Raiders. They've had some impressive wins, but they just haven't been able to put together a strong, winning streak. Andy Dalton was 21 of 25, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, 149.6 passer rating. So that's one of the best games any quarterback has had all season. He had 4 incompletions. He almost had more touchdowns than incompletions. One short, though. But he played well. The Saints played well. That being said, they did play the Rams, which kind of shows you where the balance of power has moved. As for the 49ers, they're still as solid a team as ever. Jimmy Garoppolo kind of reminding us why he was with the 49ers and why the 49ers decided to keep him. He was 20 of 29, 228 yards, 4 touchdowns for 131.9 passer rating. A phenomenal game by Jimmy Garoppolo, an absolutely phenomenal game. And it's games like this that make me think, why are the 49ers not sticking with Jimmy Garoppolo? Why are they trying to transition him over to Trey Lance? Trey Lance is more of a risk. Maybe they see him as a higher return than Jimmy Garoppolo, but Jimmy G took you to a Super Bowl and a conference championship. 2 conference championships, if I remember correctly. So maybe they think that this is going to be the last step to help them win a Super Bowl. I don't know. They were pretty darn close beating the Chiefs in that one Super Bowl. Sometimes you just need a little bit of luck and for everything to go your way. But I guess Jimmy Garoppolo has another chance here. They're looking very strong. They're 6-4. They're at the top of their division now. They're not fighting for that 7th seed anymore. So a lot is going well for them. I'm going to be going with the 49ers on this one. While the Saints do have a lot of good stuff going for them, they're not going to be making a playoff run. The 49ers are. I think that they're going to reestablish themselves, make a strong push, and I think they're going to beat the Saints pretty convincingly. All right, guys, so the time has now come. It is Sunday Night Football. We have the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles. So this game could surprise some people. The Eagles barely squeaked by, beating the Colts 17-16. Jalen Hurts was 18 of 25, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 107.1 passer rating. In addition to that, he had 16 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown. So this was the Jalen Hurts game. But they almost lost to the Colts. Now, is that Jeff Saturday being a much better head coach than we expected and the Colts kind of being a better team? Or is it the Eagles kind of showing their true colors and showing that they're not exactly that great of a team? I think it's a little bit of both. I think that good teams finish games like this. Good teams are able to have a game-winning drive when they're down to take the lead and win. This is what good teams do. They win games. Even if it's only by 1 possession, they still find a way to do it. In the NFL, all teams are professional. The skill gap is very, very small, unless you're the Houston Texans. So that's what I would attribute that to. I think that the Packers have a chance of upsetting the Eagles Because right now, the only thing the Packers can do to make the playoffs right now is to win out. They can't afford to lose another game. If they lose this game now, their chance of making the playoffs go from 1% to 0%. If they beat the Eagles, then it's like, okay, they're still kind of alive. They win next week's game, they're kind of alive some more. They make it to 7-7. They're right in the thick of things with all the other wild card teams. They're just on the lower end of things. So this is a must-win for the Packers. If the Eagles lose this game, then they will be on a pretty tough 3-game skid. They'll have lost 2 of their last 3, and they almost lost to the Colts. Again, like I said, they're a good team, though, so they managed to, squeak by with a win. But it's still not looking good for a 9-1 team to be 2 of their last 3. The Eagles, you got to hope that the Eagles don't limp their way into the playoffs, because when the playoffs start, the regular season doesn't matter. It's how strong you are as a team in that moment. That's what got the Bengals to the Super Bowl. They were a strong team in that moment, and they were able to capitalize on being healthy, their momentum, and that's what got them into the Super Bowl. So if the Eagles come into the playoffs flat, they're as good as done in the first round. So winning a game like this is important, and I think they're going to do it. I'm giving it to the home team. The Eagles are going to win this game. So this next game, I think, is really going to be some fodder for prime time. I think Monday Night Football, they're going to love this. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Indianapolis Colts. I bet you there's going to be a lot of Jeff Saturday talk. A lot of the camera's going to be on him. They're going to be like, oh, we talked about this, we talked about that. This is what prime time's all about. They really go after the big stories. And Jeff Saturday being a head coach and doing rather well is going to be a hot button discussion. Right now, he's 1-1. The one loss he had was against a good Eagles team, and they only lost by 1. So I don't know if this is a matter of like the whole meta of head coaches being flipped on its head with what Jeff Saturday is doing. Not sure. The Steelers put up a valiant performance against the Bengals, putting up 30 points. Their offense is finally starting to get some life, which I think is good. They're 3-7. They're not going to be making the playoffs, but I do think that if their offense keeps playing this well, then there's a lot of optimism going into next season. This was kind of a rebuild year for them under Kenny Pickett, who was 25 of 42, 265 yards, 1 touchdown, 85.9 passer rating. Najee Harris had a good game, 20 carries, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then George Pickens had 4 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown. So the Steelers have elite talent. George Pickens is legit. He's a dog. He is a great wide receiver. Kenny Pickett, I think, is gaining more and more confidence with each game. And I think the expectation of making the playoffs isn't really what they're thinking about right now. They're just thinking about becoming a better team for next season, trying to stay healthy, and then making whatever moves they can in the draft. But George Pickens is already proving to be a good pick for them. He's playing really well. Kenny Pickett, like I said, he's starting to kind of get his sea legs under him. He's becoming more and more confident with his role, which I think, is a net positive for them. So while the Steelers will lose their consecutive years of plus 500 records and they won't make the playoffs, and their first season with Big Ben is going to be a bad one, I think there's a lot of optimism for them to rebuild, come back stronger for 2023, and kind of pick up where they left off. That's how I'm kind of looking at the season for the Steelers. As for the Colts, they're 4-6-1. Their season's just about over as well. Jeff Saturday, as an interim head coach, just want to remind that if they stick with Jeff Saturday for 2023, then we have a little bit of a hey, what are you guys doing? But as an interim head coach, I have no problem with the hire. Interim head coach for the remaining of the season. He's going to coach for however, let's see, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. Like, this is week 12. He's going to be playing. He's going to be coaching for another, 6 games? And then he won't be. It'll be a nice little experience for him. Who knows? He might get another head coaching job down the line or a coordinator position down the line with this experience. Who knows? At the end of the line, though, I think the Steelers have played more impressive games than the Colts. I think on prime time, the Steelers always show up. Putting up 30 points was very impressive against the Bengals. And I think the Steelers are going to win this game. Yeah, I think they're going to beat the Colts. So that does it for my predictions. This was a long one. I believe there's no teams on bye, which is why this ended up being such a long video. But for now, that is it for week 12. And now we are going to go to the playoff picture. So let's take a look. All right, guys, so we're going to start off with the NFC first. We got our NFC bracket right over here. Number 1 seed, still the Eagles, still 9-1. They're still the ones anticipated to get the bye. 8-2 with the Minnesota Vikings. They are the number 2 seed right now. We'll see if they can get past the Patriots, though. Number 3 seed, it's jumped all the way up to the San Francisco 49ers at 6-4. So right now, that division seems like it's going to be a dogfight between Seattle and San Francisco. So neither of those teams can really afford to take a back step here. San Francisco's the third seed. Number 4 seed is the 5-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're the beneficiary of a really weak division, but when you got Tom Brady at the helm, you never know what's going to happen. He's, the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, the wild card. We got the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants, both at 7-3. And the Seattle Seahawks falling down at 6-4. They're still the number 7 seeds. So they just swapped places with the San Francisco 49ers for this week. Right now, like, all these wild card teams are good. I think the wild card for the NFC is way better than the AFC, personally. It's really going to be interesting, though, because the Giants have not looked the best. I believe they've lost 2 of their last 3. And I'm starting to wonder if the wheels are going to start falling off the wagon here with them. If they lose to the Cowboys, then they may be in a bit more trouble as well. They'll have dropped to 7-4 after being 7-2. So that will not have been good. So then in the hunt, we have the number 8 seeds, the Washington Commanders. They're 6-5. They're really the only team right now that can back into a wild card spot. The Falcons are the number 9 seeds. They're 5-6. They still have a chance to win the division over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think a wild card berth is in their future because they're a game back behind the Commanders, right? So, I mean, if they beat the Commanders this week, it'll be a big feather in their cap. But if they lose, they drop to 5-7, and their playoff hopes dwindle ever so slightly. And then at the number 10 seeds, the Detroit Lions. Yes, the 3-win streak of Detroit Lions are technically the number 10 seed. They are ahead of the Packers right now, which I think is pretty crazy. All they can really hope to do is just keep winning and see if they can backdoor themselves into the playoffs. Like I said, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the fact that they've really righted the ship a little bit and have won 3 straight is enough of a victory for them. So that's the NFC. Really praying for the Commanders here, really praying for some of these NFC East teams to really fall off, really hoping for either the Seahawks or the 49ers to have a bad second half of their season. So, AFC, here we go. The Kansas City Chiefs take their rightful spot as the number 1 seeds. They're 8-2. The Miami Dolphins and Tennessee Titans are both 7-3, respectively. The Dolphins are the number 2 seed. Again, look at what the Dolphins have been able to do. They are 7-0 when Tua finishes these games. Something about Tua is helping them win games. This is the best the Dolphins have been. This is the best the Dolphins have been since Dan Marino was their quarterback 25 years ago. And that's no hyperbole. So they're having a great season. Tennessee Titans and the Ravens, really. The Ravens are also 7-3. So you got 3 7-3 teams at the 2, 3, and 4 seed. Titans and Ravens are very similar in that they're competitors. They can beat any team, and that's why they're dangerous in the playoffs. These are 2 teams that have plenty of playoff experience, which I think goes a long way. These teams are used to playing more than 17 games in a season. Sometimes a team will come in and it's like, it's the 18th game, it's the wild card game. We're used to the season being over, but it's not over. We're in the playoffs, right? So they have that going for them. So they're both doing well. Now to the playoff picture. The 5th seed, Buffalo Bills, they're 7-3. They are comfortably ahead right now because the 6th seed, the Patriots, are a full game back, as well as the Cincinnati Bengals. So there's a bit of wiggle room there for the Buffalo Bills. So as for the 6 and 7 seeds, we got the Patriots and the Bengals. They're both 6-4. And then on the bubble are the New York Jets, who are also 6-4. So right now, the Patriots, with their win over the Jets, have superseded them, and they are in the playoff race, and the Jets are not. So this is what I was saying. The Jets were in the playoff race. I believe they were the number 5 seed, right? But that's why, they can't keep letting Zach Wilson play these bad games. That's why they can't keep letting Zach Wilson lose these games for them. So they got to do something quick, whether it's benching Zach Wilson for Joe Flacco or whatever. They need to do something because this right here is not good for them. They're letting their playoff hopes slip between their fingers. And then the number 9 and 10 seeds, we got the Los Angeles Chargers at 5-5, and we got the Indianapolis Colts at 4-6-1. So again, the Colts are 2 games back. The Chargers are only 1 game back. So if the Patriots or Bengals lose and the Chargers win, they're right back in the thick of things. The same can be said for the Commanders as well, because if the Seahawks or 49ers lose and they win, they'll be a 7-win team. They'll move into the playoff race. But a lot of exciting stuff happening here. Right now, teams on the rise are the Commanders. They, like I said, won 5 of their last 6. They're so close. It's going to be so nice if they're actually in the playoff picture, not on the outside looking in. That way they control their own destiny. For teams like the Jets, who are barely hanging on, they need to make some kind of change, or else they run the risk of just barely slipping away after they had one of the best starts to a season that they've had in, a decade. So those are my predictions for week 12. It's Thanksgiving week for football. All the teams will be playing. There are no bye weeks. Chock full of football this week. Hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys are thankful for a whole lot. Thankful for all the viewers that watch my video, all 6 of you. I do it for the fun of it, not the views. But that is going to be week 12. I've been Lampini, and I will see you guys next week. Take care.